there is a conflict of interest as determined by the board or by law. Does any board member have a conflict of interest with respect to any agenda item coming before the board today? If so, please identify the conflict and the board will consider the matter.
Ms. Taylor?
No conflict. Barnax Taylor.
No conflict.
No conflict.
No conflict. Next item is the consent agenda. You see the bullet points below that that are in the consent agenda. Oh, yes, excuse me. We have to approve the agenda. I missed that. Item 3, I skipped item 3. Does anybody have any issues with the agenda? If not, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, in looking over the agenda, I would, the presentation about the solar energy, if we could move that up, I think it would be beneficial for everyone to hear, in case people have to leave early.
Okay, where would you propose to move that?
I would say right before the citizens' comments after the consent agenda,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
do we have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? We'll move the solar farm presentation from 8 to 6 and move 6 and 7 both back one slot. If no discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Barnax Taylor.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, we'll do the consent agenda next. You see bullet points of the things that are included in the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as
Yep.
presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I, Barnax Taylor.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we will have our solar energy presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening. Is this mic on?
Okay, normally I don't need a microphone, but this is great. All right, so I do have some informational handouts, and I'll just kind of, I think it's 25, so I don't think that may be enough, but if everybody wants to share. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
While he's handing those out, I wanted to just introduce Mr. Reginald from the Center for Energy Education. We've had a lot of questions, concerns, and we wanted to bring in the expert so that he can educate us on the fundamentals of solar. So we're going to provide a 15-minute presentation that gives us a background on the basics of solar. We call it the Solar 101. Followed by that, we'll have a 10-minute Q&A that will allow citizens to ask questions that the board as well as Mr. Reggie can answer, and that will conclude our presentation. So, ready? Want to give you speed?
Yep. I think I had a PowerPoint. Is PowerPoint going to be up? Got it. It's fine. Always bring it back up. All right. So my name is Reginald Bynum with the Center for Energy Education. I am the Community Engagement Director for the Center for Energy Education. I'm also on the State Energy Conference Board. I'm also on the State Energy Board, also a lecturer at Duke University. while I work with the Duke Climate Department on innovative designs for Halifax County. Moreover, I'm also a lecturer at NC State. Just a background. I do work at the Center for Energy Education, where we are dedicated to being a cutting-edge space where education, research, and industry leading professionals work and learn side by side. We do work in workforce development, educational programs, and again, in my job, I educate public officials across the country, Indiana, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, et cetera, on the benefits of renewable energy and how to make it work for rural communities. And that is only how to make it work for rural communities, and that's what I like to stress with. So we'll start with the U.S. renewable energy goals. What I gave you there was a frequently asked question sheet, and hopefully that can answer a lot of questions that we may have up front. Again, I work with industry professionals, and I probably spent about 8 hours doing research specifically about the questions that I've seen come up through Northampton County, so hopefully that helps you all out. The U.S. renewable energy goals is 100% carbon pollution-free electricity by 2030, at least half of which will be likely supplied clean energy to meet the 24/7 demand. Right now, clean energy is growing at a 5-to-1 rate versus petroleum-based and coal-based energy. So growing at a 5-to-1 rate nationally. The U.S. aims to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. These goals involve revolutionizing how we generate and use electricity. Executive Order 14057 aims to deliver an emissions reduction pathway consistent with reducing U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by 50 to 52% from 2005 levels by 2030, 100% zero emissions EV or ZEV acquisitions by 2035, including 100% zero emissions light duty vehicle acquisitions. I'll move forward to the North Carolina energy goals. And in October 2021, Governor Roy Cooper signed House Bill 951, known as Energy Solutions for North Carolina. This bipartisan law aims to transition the state toward a reliable and affordable clean energy future. The bill requires the North Carolina Utilities Commission to take specific steps, achieve a 70% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030, and attain carbon neutrality by 2050. North Carolina right now is ranked number 4 out of all states that are powered by solar, which is roughly 1.2 million homes. The percentage of the state's electricity from solar right now is 9.75%, up from 9.12% from last year. The solar companies in the state, right now, there are about 259 companies, 40 manufacturers, 102 installer developers, and 117 others. The total solar investment in the state is $13.1 billion in the state for solar. Right now in the country, North Carolina is number 1 in the country in private investments in solar, which, if you add that up, is about $19.1 billion itself. So it's a lot of investment into solar and renewable energy in North Carolina. North Carolina, a fun fact, is actually has the highest residential power use out of any state in the country, believe it or not. So there is a huge power demand in North Carolina. Over $31 billion in clean energy investment occurred between 2007 and 2022. And if we can get to the economic benefits of solar, it produces cost-effective electricity generation. Solar projects can provide competitively priced electricity, often cheaper than traditional fossil fuel-based power plants. The job creation and economic stimulus, and I put an asterisk beside that. The development, construction, and maintenance of utility-scale solar plants can create numerous jobs, is what I would say there, from engineering and manufacturing to installation and ongoing operations. These projects can stimulate local economies, especially in rural areas where many large solar farms are located. And I'll speak on that more towards the end after my questions are done. Attracting investment. They attract investment because they attract significant investment from private and public sectors, like I mentioned to you, including funding from banks, private equity firms, and government grants. These investments contribute to economic growth and can spur further development in related industries. I will say that there is a concern about government grants given the new administration, which doesn't bother me either way, but there will be some government money held back, but the private investments I want to go back to, which is the highest in the country North Carolina has, that does not affect private investments. So the grant money that's allocated, solar for all and those type of things, that 40% of the revenue was supposed to be, okay, there we go. Okay. There we go. All right, perfect. All right, cool. So we get into energy independence and security. As we know, there are a lot of data centers that are looking to come to North Carolina. AI is big as well. Those require a lot of power. Data centers, if we were to bring a data center here in this area, it would literally take all the power that we have to power a data center. AI is constantly running as well. It's also added to our social media now, in case we don't know that actually requires a lot of power. So with that being said, already with the energy demand that we have in North Carolina, which I stated is the highest residential use in the country, added with the growth that we see in North Carolina, which is traditionally higher than most other states in the country, there's a huge need to produce power cheaply and effectively, particularly in rural areas. The economic benefits of solar: reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, which is big for our environment. A long-term price stability. Solar power has predictable and stable operating costs as it does not rely on fuel inputs with fluctuating gas prices. Grid stability and reliability. Solar can enhance grid reliability and stability by reducing peak demand and providing a speedy supply of power. Integration with energy storage systems can also offer additional grid support. Economic benefits of landowners. Land leased for utility-scale solar projects provides a steady income for landowners, often more lucrative than traditional agricultural uses. This option can provide economic benefits to rural communities and support local economies. The workforce development impacts from solar. We actually at the center recently we have a job fair going on the 30th in which we have 100 people signed up for jobs. We actually helped hire for a local project in the area, I'll just say, which is about 40 jobs. Those jobs pay roughly $25 to $28 an hour. In Halifax County, where I reside, the average wage for a lot of young people is $10 to $12 per hour. So once you start looking at the difference in pay, which is pretty much doubling what they'll be making in a traditional job in our area, there are a lot of benefits to that. Even in the jobs that aren't permanent jobs, because for instance, there are jobs in which they will travel to the next project. That money still resides in Northampton County if that happens, because they're still supporting the family and those type of things. So that's how we look at long-term economic development, also long-term workforce development. And again, there's an asterisk beside that because there are things we have to do in order to ensure that happens for the county. Training and education programs. The growth of utility-scale solar projects has led to development of special training and certificate programs. These programs are offered through colleges, technical schools, and industry organizations to equip workers with the necessary skills. Apprenticeships and on-the-job training programs also help workers gain hands-on experience, enhancing their employability and career prospects in the solar industry. Economic benefits local communities as well. Utility-scale projects often create jobs in rural or economically disadvantaged areas, providing new employment opportunities and stimulating local economies. I'm sorry I cannot see that far out, even with glasses on. A workforce development impacts from solar. I'm gonna try to wrap up to get to questions. Skill diversification and transferability. I know one thing, being from a small town, which I'm from, the small town of Halifax, not just Halifax County, the transferable job skills that people have, right? So you work on a solar farm, you get electrical experience. You also take that same experience and you bring it back to your community. That is kind of how a lot of us were raised. A lot of us saw our parents and saw our grandparents. And still to this day, transferable job skills are very important because it piques their interest. They can start on a job and then go to school for that craft in order to start a career and those type of things. So again, it's very important. When we look at these jobs, you start looking at job, or skill transferability. Solar and public safety. So a big advantage, obviously, is that solar power generation farms do not produce air pollutants such as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, or particulate matter, which are common products of fossil fuel combustion. Improved air quality leads to fewer respiratory and cardiovascular health issues among the general public. Mitigation of climate change, even though we might not want to see it, I think we're seeing what's happening from that now across the country. Solar energy reduces greenhouse gas emissions, contributing to the mitigation of climate change as its associated extreme weather events, which can pose significant risks to public safety. And a non-combustible energy source. Unlike fossil fuel, solar energy does not involve combustion processes, eliminating risks associated with explosions and fires. Worker safety benefits. The reduced risk of occupational hazards. Workers in the solar industry are less exposed to the hazardous conditions typical in fossil fuels and fossil fuel extraction and processing, such as coal mining, drilling, and natural gas fracking. Solar installations primarily involve electrical and construction work, which are generally safer with proper training and precautions. Lower exposure to hazardous materials. Solar panel manufacturing installation involve fewer hazardous materials compared to its chemicals and pollutants encountered in fossil fuels. Proper handling and disposal protocols for any hazardous materials used, such as certain chemicals, will mitigate risk. Also, there's a focus on improved working conditions. We can kind of speak to that really quickly. Solar projects typically have better working conditions compared to fossil fuel extraction sites, which can be remote, dangerous, and involve harsh environmental conditions. Solar farms are often located in accessible areas with better infrastructure and emergency response capabilities. If we look at, I want to go to noise reduction. Solar power systems operate quietly compared to fossil fuel plants, which often produce significant noise pollution that can affect nearby communities and wildlife. Typically, you may hear an inverter, but the inverter is the sound of like an HVAC unit that you would typically have at your house. Solar farms with proper planning and management, which I stress, with proper planning and management, can coexist with wildlife habitats and even contribute to habitat restoration efforts. Unlike fossil fuel extraction, which can cause significant habitat destruction, solar energy has a smaller footprint in the environment. To add to that, there's also a newer concept called agrivoltaics, which I've seen happen across the country, in which you have panels, you're still able to grow crops underneath the panels. So we actually demonstrated that at our Solar Fest. I believe, Kevin, you actually attended that, Commissioner Edwards. You attended that, and we showed how you can have sheep grazing, crops underneath, and those type of things, as well as having solar panels. So it's not, it doesn't have to be an omission of agricultural land, but it can be used in conjunction with that land as well. And now, I did want to focus on questions. I did want everyone to reference the frequently asked questions sheet that I have. And I did have another handout too, which I'll leave for everybody, which is the parts of a solar panel. So we can talk about that as well. Well, I'll start off this way. Let's talk about property values and solar farms. I'll dig right into it. So let's dig into it, right? So there was a Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory study that found that homes within a quarter mile of some utility scale solar farms saw an average property value decline of 2.3%. But there were no effects outside of 1 mile. So what does that mean? It means that typically within a mile of a solar farm, you may see up to a 2.3% decline nationally. Now, if you ask the question, how many homes were studied and transactions were studied in order to determine this data, 1.8 million transactions were studied in the 6 states that pretty much compile 80% of the solar in the United States, and North Carolina being one of them. So it is a vast study, a lot of data, It wasn't all positive, but what I will say is that it shows more or less of a decline compared to hog farms and landfills, which saw double-digit declines in property value. So I did want to put that in context. So as we look at any type of major industry or any type of major project, typically there may be some decline. For instance, there's also a study that shows that homes within a mile of a detention center are typically 15% less in market value. So I want to put that in a whole scope and a perspective of when you look at these property declines, it is not singular. Okay. So let's look at, again, it was 1.8 million properties. I want to talk about the land use, the agricultural land use for Northampton County, which I think is very, very important. So right now, we are currently, and this is actually omitting, the timberland. So right now, Northampton County, out of 161,851 acres of agricultural and cropland, 8,627 of it is being used for solar. One particular project is almost half of that. And that's roughly 5.3% of the total land use in Northampton County. That data was pulled from the county office and also from the U.S. Bureau, the U.S. Farm Bureau statistics. So I pulled the agricultural land acres from that report, and that report was done in 2023. Again, I'm using all data points for this. So again, that does exclude the timberland. I did not want to take the number out. I wanted to make sure that it was a higher percentage, but obviously it'll be lower if you add the timberland. I understand that one particular project used a lot of timberland. I did not take that out. I kept it true to the dialogue. So again, we're looking at out of 161,851 acres, 8,627 area right now is being used for solar. And they're roughly over, from what I saw, over a dozen farms in Northampton County, roughly.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And you may not be the one that can answer this. I know one of your points was generate significant property tax revenue. Do we reevaluate these properties to give them a higher value once they're no longer a farm, but become a solar farm? That may be a tax department or economic development department.
So I did want to say, typically you have to under your special use. I don't know what it was coded, because I know in the early days it was kind of weird out there, because some people were kind of listening as commercial use, right? Special land. So I think you should definitely look into that and see what that looks like. Because I have seen recently, up until the past 6 months, to where the coding was a little off and they mixed out on tax revenue. I'm not saying that's the case with Northampton County. I'm only saying that and the clients I've worked with, I've seen that happen recently.
The other question I have also relates to that. Who pays the taxes, the landowner or the solar company? Because most times they lease that, they don't really own it. You may not know that either.
Well, typically, someone want to speak to it? Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, I was going to see, in some of the deals that I see developers actually, it depends, it can kind of depend, but I've seen good stewards to the community actually pay the taxes as I think they should, but again, I'm not sure what you're.
So that's probably more up to the deal between the landowner and the solar company. Okay.
Which I think we should evaluate to make sure they're fair across the board, but that's a separate conversation for a different day. So,
Right.
And make sure they're fair to the landowners and they're not being shortchanged and being lowballed in one case, and then someone else is making more than a neighbor and they're sharing the same. That happens. So I'm just putting it out there.
Mr. Bonham?
Yes, ma'am.
I got a quick question. I don't want to tie it up for my citizens to ask their questions.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm hearing you say this. What is the money? It seems like, is there money? Are we leaving money on the table in Northampton County? Because we got these folk with these solar farms coming in here, and they're getting the 80% tax exempt for having a solar farm, but yet they still got to pay property taxes. How do we benefit from the money? Are we benefiting from the money that the solar farms in this area are? Are we benefiting from the solar farms and the tax breaks that we should get? Are we leaving money on the table? That's my question.
Yes, but I think the best answer I could give you is that that there are guidelines and there are other templates and places that I work with that actually have done a good job with that. I don't know exactly what you guys have on paper. I haven't seen it, so I don't want to speak to anything that you guys have going on. But I will say that what I have seen recently is that counties that I work with locally, I'll just say that we have left money on the table. And not just from a tax revenue standpoint, but from a community benefit standpoint. And that's where I think I really side with the citizens on it, is that the benefits that are given to, and this is what I speak on when I go to these places, by the way, it isn't like just giving them a softball. It's literally like I come from a underserved rural community, and I'm giving them tough questions. And my question to them is that if we bring these large-scale projects to Raleigh, we guarantee jobs, we guarantee infrastructure, and we guarantee revenue outside of tax benefits. So what has changed from looking at this as a business model, economic development model, that's where the disconnect has happened between rural communities and urban communities, is that they treat those projects as economic development models, and we're looking at them as agricultural, we need to look at them as economic development models in which we can demand or legally write in that jobs are guaranteed, infrastructure is guaranteed outside of tax benefit. To me, the tax benefit is good, but when you have so much that needs to be done in our counties,
Amen. Amen.
$100,000 a year isn't enough to make a dent. So when companies are coming in with these large-scale projects, I suggest that we put them on the hook for guaranteed jobs, outside revenue, outside, and it's legally been done. They're called community benefit agreements, and I'm working with Derek on drafting up something to give to the commissioner, so you can look at this so the citizens can actually see the benefit of it outside of tax benefit. Yes, sir. Are we about to say something?
Oh, yes, I know you got to get to the citizens. I just wanted just a couple, in your presentation, Mr. Bynum, you alluded to, because one of the questions that we hear a lot, are solar farms safe? And are they safe to wildlife, and are they safe after they are decommissioned?
Yes, sir.
Because nothing lasts forever. And so could you address those 2 points in this
Yes.
presentation, please?
Yes. So the companies that I work with, typically, the first 2 years before it's even presented to the planning board is typically you'll do your wildlife studies, your habitat studies, and those are typically presented to the planning board before it even gets to you guys, right? So those studies are mandated within the state. So those studies, the soil quality. I mean, I know Warren County.
Yeah.
You know, that's a home of climate justice, right? So every place that goes in, they kind of know that, but also it's a part of their commitment to the community doing soil tests, environmental tests. I've seen some farms across the state where they leave openings in the fence line for certain, animals to run through, because that was important to the community. So it has to be crafted. I know you guys have a great agriculture. I went to a meeting last year. I think you guys have an agricultural team or delegates in the county.
Yeah, agricultural is king in the
Yeah,
county.
but I would say working with that group, they should be working with that group to better understand the vegetation that we should be growing to stop runoff, right? That's a major thing. Also looking at, okay, what type of wildlife do we have here? And if they're, I mean, God forbid, like, a dying species, then we should allow them to be able to run out and those type of things. I mean, so those are things that should be worked out between the county and the developer, but also should kind of be spelled out, I think, in some, in your documentation. But typically, those things are done across the state. I've seen the deals, I've seen the plans, and I don't work with developers unless they do those things. That's a part of what we do at the center. We actually vet the companies to make sure they're doing those environmental tests and they're doing right by the community. And we also try to force them to create the jobs. But again, that's kind of down to the county to determine that legally and hold them accountable for that.
And I really appreciate your presentation because we as a board placed a moratorium
Yes, sir.
on solar farms.
I was here, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. I just want to be clear, and thank you so much for coming, because we hear what our citizens are saying.
Yeah.
But of course, we always want to give an educational perspective from the solar energy, because when it comes to what you're presenting, the center is directly in Halifax County, which is 20 minutes from here.
Yeah.
Okay, just,
And I did want to say this, that we're part of a federal grant in which we're helping create the policy for North Carolina around ordinances, around community. I'm on a team that's helping create community benefits for different places around the state. We're sought after as leaders in this space, particularly in rural areas, to be the voice and to stand up for what's needed. So I am pro-solar, but like I will say, I'm pro-solar if it works for our communities. Without the economic benefits, I'm not pro-solar, right? I'm just not. There has to be a commitment to the environment and a commitment to the people of the county, and through jobs, infrastructure, and economic development in order for it to make sense for me. If we're open for questions, I would love to take some.
Do any citizens have questions?
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It says economic development is generate significant property tax revenue and local government companies for the schools.
Yes, ma'am.
In terms of, Chair just asked a little while ago, where does this money go? How do we get this money? So is it going, how do you see that it's going into the schools?
Yep. Yeah, that's a great question. That's unfortunately a question I have. I can't answer for Northampton County. I cannot. But should you see the benefit from a 3,000 acre solar farm that's coming to Northampton County? I believe you should. I believe that should be spelled out somewhere.
Yeah, and that's why I asked that question. I want to find out myself.
We need to find out, and then
Yes, ma'am.
also with these solar farms, most solar farms, they deplete the forest to put solar farms. And I've seen this on Cherokee Road, where they cut down many trees, but then our animals have no habitat. So how could that so be so beneficial to the community when you see it there in your community that you haven't seen before, because they deplete the forest?
Yeah. I think that it goes back to the habitat studies that they should do, that we should hold them accountable to. We should hear that stuff in the planning board. I would also advise that, and I'll say this, is that oftentimes I go to planning boards and these companies are presenting, and I'm trying to hold them accountable from my standpoint, but there's no citizens there. And I'm just being honest with you. And I'm not saying that, I'm saying it because I really want us to be involved in these decisions, because what's being discussed, they're presenting a farm, they're presenting the benefits, and the planning board's job is to look at the guidelines and to follow the guidelines. If the guidelines aren't questioned, then the guidelines are the guidelines, unfortunately. And I'm just being as real as I could possibly be in that answer.
Because before the pandemic, in our NAACP meetings, I encouraged people to start going to the planning board, to the economic development meetings, and also to the commissioners meetings, because this is where it starts, it comes in, and if you're not there to hear it, once it don't have, it's hard to find it. So at that time, before the pandemic, we were packing those meetings, but since the pandemic, people have kind of made that.
Yeah.
And this is how we get a lot of stuff in our community that we really don't want, because nobody's there to voice their opinion and say, we don't want this.
Yeah.
And take it back to the community so they can know what's going on.
Yeah, I understand completely. I think that there's a way to make it work. I have ideas, I'm seeing it work, but I think the first step is having this, is having, and again, I'm offering my services, and again, if you're gonna talk to an expert besides me at different places, say, hey, Richard's not good enough, then that's fine, then I can introduce you to that person as well. But I want to get to the real question and then understand how can this work for us if it's gonna happen? Because the fact is that 80% of these farms are coming to rural areas. Whether it's Northampton County, it's gonna be Warren County. If it's not Warren County, it's gonna be Halifax. Like Edgecombe County is seeing, just so you know, our neighbors in Edgecombe and Nash County are seeing $300 million injections into their local economy. I think I've sent you some of those articles, sir. And they figure out a way to make it work. We have to figure out a way to make it work for us. Right, I believe the battery storage company that's going to Edgecombe County, I know for a fact because I've talked to those officials and people there, like they guaranteed a certain amount of jobs working through Nash Technical College. But again, it goes back to what I stated, we have to include those in the details. As I said, the devil's in the details. The details of where that stuff is gonna lie, right? So tax benefit, I think is really good, but when you have $100 million worth of problems, every last one of our counties, which is roads and houses need to be fixed up, and infrastructure and grids need to be replaced, that is a drop in the bucket. But if everyone's coming out here looking at creating, okay, I have to create jobs and invest in these things, then you start to see growth overnight, if you want to make it work. Also believe in landowners' rights. So I've seen cases where people can't afford their land, and this is bailed them out. So I've seen everything. I have family that are farmers in Halifax County, and solar actually saved a farm for us. So there are two sides to a story. My job is to present both sides, but I will say that I think given the lack of, and I say the same, I said again, every year for the past 10 years in this county and Halifax County, our population has done what? Decreased. Our average age in Halifax County right now is above 50. The average age across the United States, I think, is like 44, 46 years old. So if we continue to wait for industry to come in to really save us, I don't know what that's going to look like. What I do know is that the places that are interested in bringing business, we have to put them on the hook and hold them accountable for the jobs. Right? Because our kids are seeking to go to Raleigh, Richmond, and other places because we don't have jobs here. So that's my passion. My passion is renewable energy, but it's also saving our youth and keeping our youth here so we have something to leave them, right? So they can improve our communities, right? And they can use their innovative minds and pick up where we left off and make this a better community.
I have one more statement and then I'm gonna leave it alone.
Yes, ma'am.
You're saying like I feel they don't have anywhere to come to when they come back, and this is what I feel like our leadership look at, something that's positive, not a soul feel, but something that you can bring to this community so that when our children do go to school and come back, they will have something to come back home to.
Yeah, I have a lot of ideas, but call me, I'm gonna leave you my card, okay? Well, call me and we'll talk, okay? Yes, sir. I saw your hand, I'll get you next, sir.
Question.
Yes, sir, please.
First question is.
Yes, sir.
I don't think you answered the question about what are we gonna do with the panels? Who's responsible for getting rid of the panels and all that? A lot of stuff that you read about, there's not that much that you can recycle out of those panels, and, because there's a lot of hazardous, material in it, okay? The next question is, with the new administration coming in, executive orders have already been signed, pulling us out of the new, Paris Accords, the Green New Deal, rolling back EPA requirements. So I don't think that you're going to see any funding possibly in the future for solar, wind turbines that have been put on hold. That just came out, so solar is going to be put on hold. But the question is, have you looked at that? And then the last follow-on to that is, you were saying private investment. Okay, private investment may or may not invest if the federal government is not going to give them credits, because there's a lot of credits on solar energy. Like you go buy a rechargeable car, there was a lot of credits for those. So I'm just saying is that there's a lot of moving parts that it's going to change the dynamics real soon, and those have to be looked into before you just jump.
So I've asked for all that. So let me start with your first one. So North Carolina DEQ just came out with a new plan. I would just suggest it's a good read. I think it's a 5-minute read. They're in charge of monitoring that. So that's a great place to start with that. And we're actually on a grant team, a federally funded grant team that isn't going away, by the way, that's actually helping to rewrite the decommissioning plan with a few state partners in that. So I feel pretty confident about that. As far as the projects for North Carolina, I just spoke to the NCSEA director today, and projects are solidified through 2028 in North Carolina. So I can't speak about the rest of the country. I do work in Indiana. Indiana is back and forth anyway. I do work in Ohio. That's back and forth anyway. North Carolina, the funding is secured for the next 4 years, no matter what happens in office. So that.
Sorry, you said it's secured through federal funding?
No.
Oh.
No. No, sir.
Federal only goes by 1-year budget, that's why I was asking.
Understood.
So 28 will be out of the question.
Yeah, so again, it goes back to the private investment statement I made. So these are private investments, and I mentioned earlier, equity funds and banks. So these are still business deals, right? So we have to understand that a lot of these deals are done and they're sold off to larger companies. So it's still money to be made there, and that's not going away. The energy demand isn't going away. So no matter what we may think about, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. One thing I do know is happening is that energy demand is rising. And data is being used more and more often, and solar so far has attributed for this year over 80% of the new electricity generated in the country.
But have you factored in nuclear?
Yes, absolutely.
How many nuclear reactors are coming online in the near future? I don't think there are very many.
We'll see.
And Also, they stopped a lot of coal-fired plants because of
A while ago.
emission.
Yeah, a while ago.
But the US has the highest stringent standards for scrubbers and filters for coal. We're the cleanest country for coal in the world. And so,
Okay.
we have to put up with the credits and debits to China, India, and all those other countries too. So that's the reason why there's a lot of moving parts that
Yeah,
American
it always is.
people are going to be putting up with this to let it go forward. That's what I'm saying.
No, and I respect your points. I want to let you know that being in the industry and talking to the state energy commissioner every week, right? I'm on a call with him, and we talk about energy demand and these things. Coal isn't going away anytime soon. Nuclear is not going away because of just what I mentioned, energy demand. But the facts are the facts, and that solar is going in a 5-to-1 ratio, right, statistically, versus any other,
Okay.
energy created. So,
We need
yes, sir.
to kind of move on. Did you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Gary, the
Yes,
one
sir.
last question.
Chairman Martin, you brought this up on the game. I'd like an answer to the question
Yes, sir.
is the solar farms gonna be reevaluated as property like farm, houses and things else?
I mean, that's probably more of an internal question. I believe it should be.
That was a question of not you, sir.
Yeah, that's something we'll have to look into.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's the question I have, and
Get back with
and we will look into that.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
All right? Thank you for coming tonight.
Yes, thank you guys. And I have this as well. And again, you guys have my information. So feel free to reach out, come by the center. Call me on my cell phone. It's all good. Yes,
Where
sir.
is your son?
It's in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina,
What part of Roanoke Rapids, sir?
at the old airport, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Here you go.
Just wanted to make sure that everybody knew where you were.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I believe somebody's here as well. Thank you. I'll go to another meeting. Thank you all very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reach out if you need me. All right.
Okay. Citizen comments now. Yeah.
And then we're gonna apologize.
Good evening. Citizens, when your name is called, please approach the podium, and you'll have 5 minutes to make your comments. The chair will cut off all speakers exceeding their allotted time. If you have any questions of the board, you will receive a response from the board or county staff. The board will not respond or otherwise engage in a dialogue with you during your allotted time. And pursuant to North Carolina law, this time is allotted on the agenda for the purpose of allowing public commentary on county business. This time is not an open forum to be publicly critical of the performance of any county commissioner or county employee, and the chair will maintain the order and decorum of the meeting. Commissioners, the first name I have is Mr. Alan Tashima.
Board of Commissioners, thank you for letting me speak. I still haven't received all my answers yet. I'm still waiting for some of the answers for my questions. There's only one item that I really want to bring up and bring it to everybody's attention. It's item 7, which is the audit report that just came out. And in my business and in my normal work, I've gone through a lot of budgets and I've gone through a lot of audits. And in all my years of reviewing audit findings, I've never read a more scathing findings in my life. It starts off under the heading significant audit findings, which in any definition that I know of is a failed audit, and there should be accountability by personnel that are involved. I'm not going to get into the thing, but basically, I would like to know the timeline when all these findings are going to be addressed. Some of the findings are very egregious and should be addressed soonest. Plus, it's very interesting is that they talked about the finance officer and the county manager and other personnel, that the finance officer was not properly bonded during the fiscal year. Big deal. It is a big deal. Employees should be diligent in receiving collections, including electronic payments, on a daily basis and making bank statements daily as required under the General Statute 159-32. The county should also ensure that the movement of expenditures between legally separated funds are recorded as transfers and properly approved by the board, okay? Why I'm bringing that up is because there's another working in here, is that the county, excuse me, still has projects open, funds in projects, and they haven't been closed. So there's kind of extra money sitting around out there that should not be there, okay? That was called out in the thing. And then when new funds are also necessary, management should follow proper procedures to get approval from the board to establish the fund and to adopt any necessary budget resolutions. It funds this as a show of deficit fund balances, and entities should be, prepared to have their plans adopted. Why I bring that one up is that this past year, last January, 2 things came to the board. I do not remember an amendment or anything. It was approved by the board, but it wasn't written down in accordance with the North Carolina General Statutes, all right? They spent $376,000 to buy the old Burger King to make it into an ABC store. That's one. Then they spent another $110,000, approximately $9,000 a month, to pay for extra benefits because they weren't monitoring the benefits. Medical benefits for employees went up. And they caught this in January. Normally, everybody working around here, you know what your medical benefits are going to be like in October, okay? So I'm bringing those things up. Then, additional findings, a lot of findings. They talk about several departments were overspent across the funds. Whoa, how can you overspend funds? And then they moved funds around, didn't get board approval, and money is being moved around. They also have a fiduciary bond violation. That's the finance director that is not bonded. Okay, insufficient budget transfers. That's when it gets down to what I'm talking about, budget transfers. Grant funding, they don't split grant funding. You're supposed to, by the law, split grant funding into revenues and expenditures. They don't, okay? General performance indicators. This is the most egregious. Not collecting enough ad valorem tax should be below 3%. But the audit showed that they're almost 4% below, okay? The units purchase order system, contract approval process, and/or payment process is not in compliance with the North Carolina General Statutes. The unit, which is the county, had material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, and/or statutory violations that should be addressed. Pretty harsh words. And the last one, they just reiterate that the finance officer was not bonded. That's, so I'd just like to present and show that the audit needs to be addressed.
Earl Daniels.
Thank you. I placed in front of you a updated version of what I was going to talk about tonight in order to keep it within my time limit. Prior to the expenditure of any funds on the grant funding money or county money on the facility owed them, there seemed to me too many remain questions unanswered. As Mr. Tashimi has pointed out in January 6th of 2025, at that meeting, he still hasn't had answers to some questions. My basic question starts off with why. What is the documented justification for this said facility? The need should be shared with the public. Was there a cost analysis done to determine the feasibility of upgrading the current facility versus the renovation of the Odom facility? If not, why not? What is the current inmate capacity of the current facility? The current sheriff's office is approximately 30 years old and appears to be in good shape. What's the problems with the existing facility? And while the exterior of the portion of the jail is much older, the interior was completely renovated with a new jail and the county sheriff's office was constructed. Here it should be noted the renovated portion was to house the guilty of minor offenses. The newly constructed jail was maximum security of felons. Who were the bidders on the contract? My interpretation of government contract law relevant to cost magnitude of the project requires multiple bids. The bids are relevant, and the bids are required to be open in public, read, allowed in public view. Accordingly, if the bidder is not awarded to the low contract, there must be documented justification as to why not. Why doesn't the contract specify incremental payments based upon percentage of work completion? What is the county's plans for the use of the maintenance of the existing facility as well as the existing administration building that you're planning to move out of? What is the projected budget for the operation of the Odom facility to include inmate transportation to and from the Odom and the new courthouse? Until all these questions are answered and there's more transparency as to the need and cost, I think this project should not be acted on. I recommend this project be tabled till all questions are answered in public forum with undeniable and sound justification. Mindful of the facts, the public safety budget is the highest in the history of the county. As of 2024, the approved budget was $13,806,254. That's 37% of the county budget. For comparison purpose, I am defining public safety as the sheriff's office, the jail, and the dispatcher. In 1960, when the population was approximately 30,000, public safety consisted of a total of a sheriff, 9 full deputies, 2 jailers, 1 dispatcher, a total of 13. In 1990s, the population was approximately 23,000. Safety consisted of the sheriff, 22 deputies, 5 jailers, 2 dispatchers, 1 office administrator, for a total of 31. Today, the population is approximately 16,700. There is a sheriff, 40 deputies, 17 jailers, 14 dispatchers, 2 animal control officers, and 4 admin and office assistants for a total of 78. What is the justification for that staffing number? When was the last time the county crime report was provided to the commissioners? And finally, per the 2022 FBI Uniform Crime Report Database Complex, the average sworn warrant deputies for the southern United States, which includes North Carolina, is 1.9 deputies per 1,000 population. In Northampton County, that translates to 4.2 deputies per 1,000, or 1 deputy for every 417 members of our population. For the same time period, according to the Uniform Crime Report, FBI and SBI, Northampton County crime rate was 4.429. In just about every other county in this state, it's in the double digits. So our crime is really low compared to other crime. And while the report also asks for the index crime rate, violent crime rate, and property crime rate, Northampton County elected not to report that data. Have you seen the report? Would you agree that's some staggering contrast there? And finally, I would note that in the 2025 budget, That was $1,485,867 removed from the education line item, and the public safety line item was increased by $1,515,988. It appears to me that since the school board seems to have a problem right now in this school and the shortages, that a reversal of that action might be warranted consideration. Thank you for your time.
Marty Jenkins?
I don't think you've addressed what I was here about, was about the fire tax. Would you like for me to wait till y'all address that to step back up? No, I'm just a citizen. Yep, I just wanted to make a statement that the fire tax at Conway that has been presented. I feel like the firemen do a great job, and I think that they have actually looked at what they actually need to keep the fire department up and running and have the things to protect the citizens. I don't see why anyone would think that they're trying to raise taxes on themselves as well as everybody else if they didn't need to. I do feel like they need the equipment to keep us safe. Some have questioned it being at 7 cents per 100, why not 415? Well, they've also made a comment, well, the other fire departments are at 415. That's because they started years ago. Maybe Conway should have done that, but they haven't now, but they're trying to stay ahead of the curve with years to come. With the 7 cents per 100, they could go as high as 15 cents or ask for that if they wanted to. So they're actually falling below half of what they could actually ask for. I do feel like that we should let them proceed and get the money that they need to keep the fire department up and running and keep our insurance rates down. So, but sorry if I spoke out of turn on that, but that hadn't been addressed yet. Thank you.
Jonathan Martin?
Just defer. I was gonna speak on fire tax, but just defer for now.
Albert Van?
I was just here to help Mr. Barrett, see if he needs anything to do with it.
Gary Brown?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners all. Good evening. My comments before you tonight involve a request for information that I ask that you direct for response to your staff as you deem appropriate. A response by either email or hard copy by mail would be just dandy. All of the following was requested consistent with the Public Records Act, Chapter 132 of the North Carolina General Statutes. Excuse me. With your clerk, I will leave an article published by the UNC School of Government regarding that act and related requests for public information from state and local governments. So within that context, the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act provides for budgeting expenditures within the general county budget by department or function, or otherwise by special project ordinance and budgets. For those expenses incurred by Northampton County local government to date, for the Gaston Water Extension Project, I ask staff to please provide to me a list of the specific project costs incurred thus far and the specific source of funds for those costs incurred and payments made thus far, and either a copy of the board-approved departmental line item budget providing for payment of those costs, or a copy of the minutes of the board meeting at which time the board authorized the capital project ordinance and budget for those specific project expenses, together with any associated budget amendment transferring or expending local funds from any source, including non-departmental capital outlay for the project. A copy of the minutes of the meeting or the Board of Commissioners, at which time the board approved the specific contract or contracts leading to the specific costs incurred to date. And if those expenditures were not approved as a part of a departmental budget allocation or an approved project budget ordinance or otherwise specifically approved by the Board of Commissioners in open session, please provide me with a copy of the approved invoices for those costs bearing the name of the individual approving the expenditures. Finally, please also provide me with a copy of the project engineer's preliminary engineering report demonstrating the scope, primary elements, and feasibility of the project, as well as a copy of the project engineer's preliminary opinion of cost, identifying the primary categorical uses of project funds. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Rachel Capel.
Good afternoon. I just have little short things here. First of all, I want to thank our new commissioners. You got a big job ahead of you. And thank the ones that are still sitting. We appreciate all you do. You've got your hands full, and we do appreciate everything. The one thing that really kind of bothered me tonight, standing outside waiting for the fire department to come, which that's okay. But I don't know if any of y'all have taken notice to the flag that's out in front of our county building. What a disgusting thing.
We
that was
discussed
this
that.
night.
We discussed that. I'm a
I'm
former
telling you,
Scoutmaster, and
I just could not believe it.
that's one of my things.
Yeah, I mean, really. Mine is just nitpicky things. Second of all, the fire department. My fire department knows that I love them. I mean, I have grown up in it as a child. I still continue to help with them. And I've told everyone my prayers go out to them to whatever is decided on tonight. And I don't know if this is something I can ask for or not. If I can't, that's fine. But, I've been listening to comments here for a long time. And, I'm wondering, well, what were the responses? I'd really like to know. So is that something I can request, the responses that were given, say, like by Alan and Mr. Earl and Gary? Could I get copies of those responses also tonight? Is that something that's legal? Or anyway, you can just send me a message. I would like to get copies of those and find out what some of the answers are, because I am real curious as to some of the things that are going on in our county, and I'm just really interested. But like I say, thank y'all all again for all you do, okay? And thank you for taking care of the flag, Ian.
Chairman Martin, those are all the citizen comments I have.
Next is the presentation of the audit.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
In front of you, you have two packets. You have one that is your presentation summary and one that is your full audit report. And we are going to be mostly reading out of the presentation summary tonight. You can always refer back to the full audit report for the full context of what we're discussing. Before we do get into it, I want to say that it's very healthy to see a populace that's very interested in the audit report, and that is very refreshing, very refreshing. So looking at the first letter in our presentation summary, it is the letter to governance. So it's dated December 20th, 2024. It notes that we've audited the financial statements of governmental activities and business type activities and the aggregate discretely presented component units for the County of Northampton, according to the contract, which was dated April 24th, 2024. Management is responsible for the selection of appropriate accounting policies. This year, GASB Statement Number 100 was implemented, which is accounting changes and error corrections. Accounting estimates are an integral part of the financial statements. The two largest estimates of these financial statements result from capital assets, particularly the useful life of capital assets, and then also from management's estimate of allowance for uncollectible accounts. Flipping to page 2, We feel that the disclosures of the financial statements are neutral, consistent, and clear. We didn't encounter any significant difficulties when dealing with management in performing and completing our audit. And professional standards require that we communicate to you any uncorrected material misstatements. We're not aware of any uncorrected material misstatements in the statements. There were no disagreements with management, and as I noted, our representation letter was signed December 20th, 2024. We did not consult with any third-party accountants during the course of the audit, and we do have a number of audit findings and issues to discuss here. Starting with, the county should periodically review all accounts, and those should be completed by finance staff to ensure that accounts are reconciled in a timely manner. The finance officer was not properly bonded during the fiscal year, and the county needs to ensure that they are bonded in accordance with state statute. The county needs to ensure that school capital building funds are recorded as revenues and expenses throughout the year. County employees should be diligent in receiving collections, including electronic payments, and on a daily basis making bank deposits as required by North Carolina General Statute 15932. Budgets for all funds should be reviewed for accuracy, and efforts need to be taken to ensure that budgets are properly maintained in the accounting software. Flipping to page 3. The county should ensure that the movement of expenditures between legally separate funds are recorded as transfers and properly approved by the board. The county needs to ensure that budget amendments are approved in the board minutes and in addition to being approved on the budget amendment supporting paperwork. The county should ensure that all employees are set up in the Orbit system with the correct hire dates, and that any accounts that appear with an Orbit exception report are timely corrected. The county should ensure that all checks and drafts of an official depository are signed by both the finance officer or a properly designated deputy finance officer and countersigned by another official of the local government or the public authority designated for this purpose by the governing board per statute 15925B. The county should ensure that the LGC 203 report is filed timely, and the county should ensure that journal entries that are entered in the county's accounting system are reviewed and approved by a designated employee that is independent of the entry of the journal entry into the system. The review and approval should be documented in the journal entry, on the journal entry support. We did note that the county has a water district project that should be closed out and capitalized if it is complete. Any remaining cash balance should be transferred to the water fund. The county also had several other funds that do appear to be inactive, and those funds need to be transferred out and inactivated in the financial software. When new funds are necessary, management should follow proper procedures to get approval from the board to establish a new fund and to adopt a budget resolution. If a fund shows a deficit fund balance, entries should be proposed or plans adopted to fix the deficit fund balances. The county provides a health department and emergency management services. EMS services are done by a third-party vendor. The receivable has grown substantially over the years, and the county should record an offsetting liability account reserved to reflect the outstanding balance. The county does need to review this account with the vendor and ensure that efforts are being made to collect the balances owed to the county. Debt set-off and other tools are available. The county needs to ensure that documentation for grant revenues and expenses are maintained and filed so that it can be found when needed. And lastly, I will note that the Local Government Commission does not initiate communications anymore about financial performance indicators of concern, or FPICs, but in the file that we submit to them, they do denote that the indicators on the data input sheet related to ad valorem taxes collected being under 3% of the budgeted collection amount, various audit findings as previously noted, and a lack of pre-audit process due to expenditures exceeding appropriations, and an insufficient bond on the finance officer for the 23-24 fiscal year. And I do want to note that while that has been corrected as of June 2024, that does have to be in effect for the entirety of the fiscal year. Lastly, on the other matters, the local government employees retirement system, the ROD retirement system, and the other post-employment benefits are all determined by an actuarial report. And management should be aware of the implementation of any new GASB pronouncements, in particular GASB number 101, compensated absences, which changes the treatment around vacation and sick time. And going to page 4, we pull out some information that we think is most important for the county commissioners to be able to see the trends of how the county's performing. Starting at the top, the fund balance of the general fund has increased from 2023 to 28.9 million, while unavailable fund balance has also increased to 4 million from 2.5 in 23. Restricted and committed and assigned has increased to 6.1 million from 2.6 in 23. And general fund expenditures have also increased to 41.5 million from 36.9. Fund balance available as a percentage of general fund expenditures decreased to 59.9% from 70.2. And the unassigned fund balance also decreased to 22.7 million from 23.3 million. And as a result, the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of those expenditures decreased to 54.7% from 63.1. Looking at revenues over and under expenditures before considering other financing sources, the general fund had a revenue of 1.3 million, water and sewer funds had a revenue of 24,000, and the solid waste fund had a loss of 250,000. The cash versus accumulated depreciation in the water and sewer fund, total fixed assets were 34.2 million, up from 2023. Accumulated depreciation was also up to 15.0 million, and cash was up to 2.7 million from 2.2 million. An analysis of the cash versus the fund balance or net position. The fund balance, as we noted, was decreased for the general fund in 24. For the water and sewer funds, it was increased to 2.7 million from 2.2. For the solid waste, it increased slightly to 377,000 from 370 the previous year. Cash and other governmental was 4.9 million, down from 12.1 the previous year. Then the fund balances, as we noted, the general fund balance increased. The water and sewer fund net position was relatively consistent. The solid waste was also relatively consistent at 189,000. And then the fund balance from other governmental funds decreased slightly to 950,000 from 1.07 million in the previous year. Property tax rates decreased in 24 to 0.835 from 0.9 in 23. The collection percentage did increase in 24 to 96.91% and 96.65% when excluding motor vehicle. The total property valuation increased to 2.7 billion from 2.2 billion, and the total levy amount increased to 22.9 million from 20.1 million. Next, you have a breakdown of your debt. Your debt for your governmental general obligations decreased to 723,000 from 1.2. Your installment notes decreased to 7.7 million from 8.1. Your leases and subitas was relatively consistent at 302,000, 303,000, and 23. Your general obligations for business type decreased to 7.8 from 8.4 in 23. And your leases in business type decreased to 36,000 from 47.7 thousand in 23. And then taking a look at your general fund revenues, your total general fund revenues increased to 41.9 million from 38.7 million in 23. The largest portion of those general fund revenues is made up of ad valorem taxes. And then your breakdown of your general fund expenditures. Your total expenditures increased to 40.6 million from 35.8 million in 23. And the largest portions of those are made up of both public safety and human services. Going to page 5, this starts the graphical presentation of the same information which we've just covered in the summary of information. This can help with seeing the trend and being able to understand a little bit better. Your total fund balance, as you can see, has been increasing steadily in the general fund over the last 5 years, and restricted is at its highest level since 2022. The available fund balance decreased to 59.9% from 70.26. That is still above the group-weighted average of 51.8%. And I do want to note that those percentages are always a year trailing because they're waiting for the audit reports for all of them to come in before compiling them. Your unassigned fund balance decreased to 54.69% from 63.1 in the previous year. And revenues for the general fund have been steadily decreasing since 2021. The water and sewer fund, negligible revenue, and then the solid waste fund had a loss in 2024. Total fixed assets in the water and sewer fund has been relatively consistent. You can expect that accumulated depreciation will continue to grow as those assets get older. And cash has increased steadily for the water and sewer fund over the 5 years. Taking a look at the bottom of that page, the largest portion of your cash balances are held in the general fund. And that's also where the largest portion of your fund balance is held. Second is water and sewer fund, as we would expect in both cases. Northampton County's property tax rate decreased to 0.835 from 0.9 in 2023. That is still higher than the group-weighted average of 0.615. The 2020, and then the collection percentages, increased to 96.91% from 96.58 in 23. That is lower than the group-weighted average of 97.98. In the debt analysis, two largest portions of your debt are made up by governmental installment notes and then governmental general obligation bonds. The last page of the chart section is a breakdown of the general fund revenues and the general fund expenditures. As noted, human services and public safety for the expenditures make up both 30.39%, both of them. And then ad valorem taxes, as far as revenues, make up 55.32% of all revenues for the county in the general fund. Now, starting on page 12, we have our additional required communications. As I noted, the LGC no longer initiates communications, but they do require a response from the board within 60 days of this presentation. And we will cover these now. Starting with the financial statement findings, finding 2024-001, a reconciliation of records and reporting. It was noted that numerous accounts were not properly reconciled throughout the year. Finding number 2024-002, a budget violation. Budgets could not be provided for the Phase 6 Water Project Fund. There were several funds that also did not have a budget and only reported revenues or no activity during the year. Finding number 2024-003, budget violation for an unbalanced budget. Several departments were overspent across multiple funds. Finding number 2024-004, deficit fund balance. Two funds reported deficit fund balances, the Fire District Fund and the Debt Service Fund. Appropriate transfers need to be budgeted and made to correct these funds. Finding number 2024-005, the fidelity bond violation. The county did not have the finance officer bonded sufficiently during the entirety, I should note, of the fiscal year. 2024-006, insufficiently budgeted transfers. The county did not sufficiently budget the transfers out of the EDC Capital Reserve Fund to close out that fund. And finding 2024-007, grant fund management. The county did not adequately track grant funds in separate revenue accounts. I will note that there are also findings relating to compliance. These just apply to the financial statement findings. We also have to cover the financial performance indicators of concern from the LGC's workbook. Starting with the first one, the budgeted ad valorem taxes for the general fund had a more than 3% uncollected for the fiscal year audited. It was 3.99%, and the LGC target is to have less than 3%. Did your audit disclose any budget violations at the adopted ordinance level? The answer was yes. There were identified material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, and statutory and/or statutory violations. And then lastly, the financial performance indicator of concern relating to the finance officer being bonded sufficiently for the full year. And that concludes the presentation summary. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When I was going through this audit and your findings, your name, sir, I didn't catch your name.
My name is Hunter Wiseman.
Mr. Wiseman, when I was going through this audit, yesterday, I counted about 17 situations or issues that we had with this audit. Of everything that I saw and read, what was concerning to me the most was that the county must ensure that the employees are set up in the Orbit system, which is a retirement system.
Yes, ma'am.
I would hate to think that our citizens would get cheated in any way. I am a new retiree after 37.7 years in education. And I'm going to tell you, if somebody would have told me my time was in there wrong, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. This is concerning to me as a commissioner, and it's heartbreaking to me as a commissioner. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And I don't disagree. In fact, one of the important points of entering the information correctly is that that also factors into evaluations from the state as far as time served, as far as ensuring that an employee is entered at the correct age, or, you know, that's how they calculate the valuation of a liability. They have to project how long that employee is going to serve, and then how long there will be a responsibility to pay for that employee's benefits after their service. So it is extremely important
Yes.
that information be entered correctly and timely.
Yes.
Anyone else have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just have a lot of alarming concerns. I definitely appreciate you going through the information in great detail. And we do understand that the point of an audit is so that you can, you know, look at the areas of improvement so that you can continue to learn and grow from it. But it's just so many severe areas in this audit that need urgent attention. It's troublesome because we have to be good stewards of the citizens and their tax dollars, and we're making so many mistakes, mistakes that would cause us to sometimes have to pay double the amount out, because certainly if you're not tracking or putting employees properly in the Orbit system, you do a disservice to them. And so we definitely understand that there's some intense training that needs to take place. Very concerned because as we're looking to do other projects and things of that sort, just not feeling very confident in our fiscal management. I just wanted to be more conscious of the spending and the things that we're doing. So we definitely have to put some structures in place, some training in place so that our employees can be successful. But as I went through this audit report and read through it quite a bit, I am extremely concerned, and I don't take these findings lightly. But thank you for explaining.
Yes, ma'am.
I also want to say thank you, and then just for when this county has received grant funds, it's on 2024-007, the grant fund management. This building was built on grant funds. We have an annex built next door. We received $3 million in funding for houses. Just when you talk about the grant track funds, can you just expound on that a little bit more?
I can, yes, sir. So as the auditors who performed the audit have informed me, there were issues when it was requested for backup for grants, both in identifying the revenue pieces and then also the expenditure pieces. And then it also comes down to where those items are being entered and tracked. So if they are entered in the incorrect fund or in the incorrect line, then that means that the information that needs to be reported to both the board and also the people overseeing the grant can be incorrect as well. And you will note at the very end of your audit report, there is your schedule of expenditures for federal and state awards, which is predominantly your grant expenditures. And
Yes.
if that information is not provided correctly, then this can also be incorrect, which goes to the state and federal government as well. So it's very important when it comes to those grant expenditures and the revenues piece as well, to be able to keep a good track of that. And if the grant agreement stipulates that it must be tracked in a separate fund, then it should be tracked in its own fund.
Tracked in his own fund.
If the grant agreement stipulates that, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So my question is, the board has to sign off for this audit? Or are they gonna be corrected before we sign it?
These statements have no material misstatements that we are aware of. So whenever we conduct an audit, we're focused on a mind with materiality. That does not mean that there aren't issues that the county needs to address. In fact, there are. But we are saying in our opinion letter that we are not aware of any material misstatements to these financial statements that would impact the use of these statements to a user trying to make a decision based off of them.
Anyone else? Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, do we need to have a motion to go into the public hearing?
No, you just recess it.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a recess now to go into the public hearing for the zoning ordinance amendments. Yeah. Yeah. Everyone, you can stay in here. This is not, we're just recessing the board meeting for the public hearing. If anyone wants to leave, they can, but we aren't. As soon as we do this public hearing, we'll go back to business. And everyone's welcome to stay as part of the public hearing. Okay.
Ready?
Okay, yes, could we have,
Good evening.
go on, quiet down a bit?
Good evening. Good evening. We are going to open up a public hearing which is related to the proposed zoning amendment for shipping containers. In response to several inquiries, concerns, and lack of clarity pertaining to shipping containers, the Northampton County Planning Board held a meeting on December the 11th and voted to recommend the following amendments to the zoning ordinance. The proposed amendment number 1 would change the definition of a shipping container. I'm not going to bore you and read the definition of a shipping container. Basically, this expands the definition so that a shipping container is more clearly defined. The second proposed amendment number 2 changes the regulations for shipping containers. Currently, shipping containers are only allowed on a temporary basis in Northampton County. This amendment would allow for the permanent use of all shipping containers as an accessory structure in all zoning districts except for waterfront lots located in the watershed district, which shall be subject to the requirements set forth in this section. A proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance has been posted. It was posted, correct me, County Attorney, if I'm wrong, in December of 2024 to allow citizens sufficient time to review and provide any comments. So I'll open the floor for a public hearing.
Okay, all right. Does anyone have any public comments they'd like to make about this proposed amendment? Yes, ma'am.
Where would the shipping containers be? I mean, they could just be anywhere in the county or?
Mr. Bennett will address that.
The proposed amendment states Article 1, Section 19D, shipping containers shall be permitted as an accessory structure in all zoning districts except waterfront lots located in the watershed district, and all of those must be subject to the requirements set forth in this section. So yes, all zoning districts except waterfront lots located in the watershed district.
I think it helps me understand what are they gonna be used for, like, who's gonna have these shipping containers, who will have access to them. In other words, if I want to buy a shipping container, I can buy it and put it in the
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators.
Okay, we'll recess the meeting so that
Recess the meeting until this can be checked out.
in a brand new building, right?
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators.
Where the box at?
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators.
Right there.
your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevator.
Hey, Card.
Is that Rouser room?
The Rouser room?
Yeah, here.
Which one is the Rouser room?
It's out here out back.
Okay.
May I have your
It should be
attention?
automatic at this.
May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? A fire has been reported in the building. A fire has been reported in the building. Please proceed to the stairways and exit the building. Do not use the elevators.
Part of that.
Yeah, and that's what it was saying the last time.
So this ain't all of this back.
So 4 times every 5 was last time.
We
should not have, it's over for the ever called problem. Stand outside.
Here?
You said you smelled it the first time the alarm went off. You smelled it the second time the alarm went off.
I smelled it up there at the front.
In here?
No, up here in the front of the building. Oh, when it broke into the new courthouse.
They broke into it?
I have a key. Antoine said it's the master key.
No. It's not a Viper, but I hit the repeater, and I can talk to somebody in the Halifax Fire Department from here. Crystal clear. What are they looking for?
He put a Rouser room. Rouser room wasn't like Teams, but what was said for a while.
Look, we have yet to come in and have a walkthrough. If we have a call for the heating and air conditioning unit, you have to go to.
So we figured it out this
The
time.
second floor janitor's room is a ladder that goes straight up in a closet.
The hot water heater valve popped. The hot water valve pop, on the hot water heater, yeah. There's water all in that room back there. All right, let's see what happens.
Let's get our meeting.
Y'all must have already been here.
We were here the first time.
Oh, really?
We're standing outside, they wouldn't let us in the first time.
Oh.
Second time, we just leave. Started leaving.
Well, then how did y'all get here over?
What happened?
Y'all 200 degrees.
Okay, go back to sleep then.
Thank you.
Okay, they should be.
Well, it ain't cold today.
Mr. Brian, that's it.
Yes.
I got the Warren County School Center, got their retirement right. What have we had to
We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett.
I am cold. I want some coffee so bad, some hot tea or chata or something.
Start having that on standby, especially at night.
Oh my goodness. What in the world is going on?
Yep. Okay. Okay, we'll continue back with our public hearing. Does anyone else have any questions about the containers? Yes, ma'am.
I don't really have a question about the container, but I'm concerned about the notification of the hearing. I can't say, how many people here heard about a hearing. I know he said that they put it on the website, but I think more should be done when you have a public hearing that's gonna affect the people of the town.
So, the public hearing notice. Okay, there we go. The public hearing notices are posted, correct me if I'm wrong, County Attorney McKellar, in 2 different publications for a period of up to 15 days, is that correct?
I was reviewing my emails. I do know that this public hearing was published twice for 2 successive weeks in both the Daily Herald and the Roanoke Chowan News Herald.
Okay.
That's the component I handled under the statute.
That is correct. In addition to the minimum general statute requirements, we also posted on the county website because we know not everybody reads or receives the paper Herald, so we do post it on the county website.
It's not a good way to give people, so I just, maybe you could work on it, see if you could do a little bit more.
Like,
Just to clarify a couple of things, if you hadn't looked at this, they have to have a solid foundation, limited to 1 story, can't stack them, painted a solid color which blends into the surroundings, no graffiti, must obtain a permit to place it. They shall be screened and not visible from the street or nearby buildings, drives, roads, or adjoining property. There'll be no plumbing installed or connected to the containers. They cannot be used to store any hazardous materials. They cannot be used as living quarters. No structural modifications may be made to the shipping containers. No livestock, pets, or any living being may be stored in the shipping containers. So there are a lot of rules related to it.
and to give you a little background, this stemmed from a lot of farmers who use these containers to store their materials or whatever supplies they may need for farming or whatever crops they may have. But we were not allowing it, the ordinance did not allow this on a permanent basis. So it was an unclear area in our ordinance that needed to be corrected. To answer your question, ma'am, anybody can purchase a shipping container. So it's just not allowed in zoning districts that are in the watershed district waterfront lots.
But like I say, I was concerned too until I read it. I don't want somebody putting a shipping container in their driveway next to my house, that kind of thing, but that's not allowed. Yes, we have a question,
I
Ben.
have a few questions about the zoning, shipping containers. So there's already some facilities that have these containers on their properties that have been there for years, not 6 months, or I think right now under the current statute, they're allowed to be there temporarily for 6 months and then an additional 6 months. There's some establishments that have had them there for years, have added on to them. So how does that go going forward? Are they going to be allowed to maintain what they have?
No, because, go ahead.
And then a couple other things, like, I know you said no plumbing, will they be allowed to pipe electrical power into these storage containers for lighting or heating or things like that? And then I think in the regulations that are proposed, it says you can't stack these containers, but can they put things on top of the containers for storage?
Yeah. So
Maybe that should be something that you can't hang stuff off of them or store other things other than containers on top of these boxes. Because there's one establishment near where I live that has these containers already, about 8 or 10 of them. They got engines hanging off of them, outboard engines. They're, all different colors. Most of them are, colored like the building, some are other colors. And I don't think, there's any permits for them. And also, will they become a taxable property asset on property tax purposes?
So
As a structure.
to answer that was quite a few questions. I may not remember all of those. To answer your first question, currently shipping containers are only allowed on a temporary basis. So anything that is existing must comply with this ordinance going forward because we do not allow permanent shipping containers. So yes, existing containers will be required to comply with this ordinance. Yes. What was your second question?
Well, you answered the one about the electrical, about the.
No, I didn't answer that one. Electrical is allowed.
Yeah, so you
Yes.
answered that, right? You did. And then as far as stacking other pieces of equipment, storage items on top of these boxes, maybe something could be put in the regulation that you can't do that. You can't stack containers. You shouldn't be able to store other things on them, such as engines or other machines, machinery, things like that.
That is correct. I would agree with that.
And then I also have a question as to how are they gonna keep things from, the view shed of public roadways? I mean, obviously, you need some substantial fencing with some type of privacy devices to, get that out of people's view shed from another lot or from a roadway.
Yep. Shipping containers must be screened so as to not be visible from the street or nearby buildings, drives, roads, or adjoining property.
And who makes these determinations? Is that the zoning officer?
That is correct.
Because like I said, there's already one establishment that has 8 of these boxes on their property. They're supposed to be
That's-
temporary, and they've been there for years.
That's why we're doing this.
That's why we're doing this, to correct that.
Yeah, but if it's already in the regulations, you can't do it more than temporary, and they've been there for years and
Well,
nothing's been done.
Now that that's been brought to our attention, we're taking care of it.
To allow them to be permanent. That defeats the purpose.
Well, they can't be permanent unless they comply with all these
Changing
regulations.
the regulations so they're in compliance.
Do what?
You're changing the regulations so they are in compliance. Yeah, you're allowing.
No.
Right now, when it was only allowed temporarily, but that wasn't enforced.
Which is why we're
There's
fixing.
regulations
Yes.
that they are not complying with, that they will have to comply
Well,
with.
now they will, because they're gonna be permanent. But
Yeah,
the
they will.
last question was about them being taxed as real property, an asset on the property, structure.
I asked that question, but I don't remember the answer, so I'll have to get back to you on that one. If I'm correct, it is not considered taxable real property per our tax administrator. So,
But someone that has like an 8x10 stick-built garage on not fixed into concrete, but laying on the ground, that's taxable. But a 40-foot Connex box is not taxable.
that is correct.
Is that because currently they're only temporary supposedly, if we're gonna allow them to be permanent?
No, it is because the current, correct me if I'm wrong, general statute does not classify an accessory structure or a shipping container as an accessory structure which is not taxable. Is that correct, tax administrator?
So I can.
That has nothing to do with the ordinance change. That is a tax rule that Northampton County has adopted.
So I could get rid of my shed, my 8x12 shed, and put a 40-foot container on my property, and not be taxed on that. But my shed, I'm taxed on,
That is correct.
okay?
If you comply with all these rules. Yes, ma'am.
It will not be taxed as real property, it will be taxed as personal.
Personal.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say, is that personal?
All right, okay.
You just said temporarily, how long will they be able to stay there? It's temporary.
6 months to a year.
No, this is permanent. Yes. Any further questions?
Do we have any other questions? If not, we will go back into our regular session. Okay, now this is an action item. Do we have anyone want to propose that we accept this or maybe amend it as was suggested?
I was just picking over all the components. Once again, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move acceptance of the proposed zoning ordinance as presented by the Economic Development, Mr. Bennett.
Would you like to add an amendment to not allow anything stacked on top or hanging off of them? Or approve it as it currently is?
Okay. So just point of clarity, Mr. Chairman, so, and Mr. Bennett, you can answer this question for my clarification. What it states right now is that you cannot stack another container on top, correct?
That is correct. So section E1.
Right.
Following regulations apply to all shipping container use. Shipping containers shall not be stacked above the height of a single container. I would recommend that section to add any amendments that speak to items that are stored up on top of the shipping
or
container.
hanging off of, as this gentleman said, yes.
Okay.
Do you amend your,
Mr. Chairman, I will make that amendment.
okay?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion? Not, all in favor of the proposed zoning ordinance with the changes described, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, Barnex Taylor. Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Is that all?
I think,
Thanks. So,
do you have anything else?
thank you.
Okay. Conway Fire Department.
I don't think he needs to present it.
Okay. Scott, I think is going to present this.
I don't want to cut you off, Mr. Barrett. Go ahead. For the purposes of tonight's meeting, Commissioners, Mr. Barrett and Mr. Martin appeared at the last meeting presenting their request to start the process of establishing a new fire service district for Conway. They went into detail of why the tax was needed, you'll recall, and that an additional public hearing was held in the town of Conway on the matter. So for the action item tonight before the board, this is not approving the fire district itself. The statutes require a very specific process to establish a new fire tax service district, which includes, among other things, a package has to be mailed out to all affected landowners within the proposed new district, basically specifying that this is what's going to happen. These are the taxes that will be assessed, and also informing them that a public hearing will be held at a date and time certain before this board, and that public hearing must be held before the board can actually vote on the matter. So what is being asked of the board tonight is whether you want the tax department to proceed with reissuing the package and notice to the proposed new district landowners, so we can basically tee this up before the board later this spring.
Yeah. Since it didn't get approved last year, it has to start over, unfortunately.
We
So-
understand that.
So this, tonight's action will, assuming it passes, will allow that process to begin.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to approve them to start the process so that they can have a public hearing? And notices be sent out, et cetera.
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, Barnex Taylor. Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Okay, so the process can begin.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate this, and my men have gone quite far.
I noticed that. We appreciate what all volunteer firemen
Absolutely
do. When they used to sound the alarm for Jackson, I could hear it at my house, and sometimes you hear it at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's 20 degrees, and I say, I praise those men going out there and doing that.
Them
That's the
women.
very reason I'm aged eighty.
Thank you. Okay. Southern Bank and Trust Building.
Yes, Commissioners, the next item is the proposed donation of the former Southern Bank and Trust Building located in the town of Seaboard. At the last meeting, Judge Quashipi appeared and made the request for a donation on behalf of the town of Seaboard. Again, the property was acquired by the county in 2020 at no cost, and to my knowledge, it is sat vacant since then. And to confirm, the board is allowed legally to donate property to municipalities at no cost. Happy to answer any questions.
Do we get a tax break in donating this building to any municipality?
No, there are no tax breaks. And again, when real property is owned by the county, it's not taxed. And it won't be taxed to Seaboard.
But we will no longer be responsible for maintaining it.
That's correct.
But will Seaboard be taxed?
Not sure about how does that work.
May I ask the tax administrator? Ms. Mason, I should know this, but if the property is transferred to the town of Seaboard, will it be taxed? That's correct. It's exempt from
Okay.
ad valorem taxes.
But that's no change from the way it currently is. We're not getting any tax revenue off of it anyway, so.
That's right.
Does anyone have any questions concerning this? Do we have a motion to approve this, or does anyone have any questions from the Seaboard Group?
I have a question. Once you all get the building, how will you all pay to do the renovations or whatever? Have you written a grant, or what monies do you have to, how will you finance this?
We would do it through renovation grants. That we have already researched.
Have you been approved for grants?
No, we were waiting to own the building first.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the Southern Bank and Trust Company building ownership to the town of Seaboard as presented at our last meeting by Judge Quashipi, and the letter read by Mayor Langford, and I see Commissioner German is present as well.
Second.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Broadnax Taylor. Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Now, Northampton County School construction.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the Northampton County School Board is before you tonight to ask you to take action on two requests. I see Mr. Matthews is here beside me. The first request is to allow the school division to move forward with the construction of the new high school by providing $1.2 million in tax refund money to get started on the project. That would be a flow-through. We will get a refund for all taxes that we expend on this project, and we're just asking the county to approve us to receive that tax refund. It would come through the county and then back to the school system. So it would be a net zero cost for the county. Yes, sir.
At the meeting on January 6th, we had written communication that tax reimbursement had to be sent back to the state and then put back into grant money. Our attorneys, Rod Malone and I think Mr. McKellar, have worked on this, and I have written communication that if the commissioners earmark $1.2 million toward the construction project, when the sales tax reimbursement comes back to the county, they simply keep the sales tax reimbursement until it reaches 1.2 million. Any sales tax reimbursement that exceeds 1.2 million will then go back to the state. Now, that's changed from last meeting.
Okay.
Right.
But either way, there's no net cost to the
That's
county.
zero.
We'd have to
And the
front some
second-
money, but it would come back to us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
The second request is for $4,198,848 to close the deficit that we have on the construction of the new high school.
Okay. And let me explain to the two new commissioners who were not able, they were unable to attend the joint meeting because they were at commissioner school. So that was no fault of theirs, no dereliction of their duties in any way. They were learning about being a commissioner. The school board is applying for, what exactly is the term?
Tax credits.
New market
New
tax
market tax
credits.
Yes. If they get that, this money would come back to us. We would only be making it available to them, assuming they don't get that tax credit. And it would be distributed at the end of the construction process, so it would not be coming out of us anytime soon. It would come out in what, 2026? After July 1st of 2026, if I'm not mistaken. I called Bradley Cooper myself and talked to him just to get a feel for my own personal peace of mind on what he thought the odds of getting it. And of course, he says, you know, you never know. But we got several things going for us. Being a Tier 1 county in the state of North Carolina is one of the top 10 states that gets these tax credits. We're in one of the top counties that would get these tax credits. He told me in his 10 years of doing this, it was the most deserving application he'd ever worked on. So I said, well, if you had to put odds on it, you know, what do you think the odds are? He said, well, you know, anything can happen, but he said, I would think 75% or better that you would get it. And one of the things that increases those odds, last year, $5 billion was available for this program. In this upcoming year, $10 billion is available in this program. So that increases your odds of getting the money. They don't get paid for working on this application unless we get some money. So I don't think they would jump in if they didn't think, kind of like a lawyer working on commission for your case instead of being paid by the hour. They don't usually do that if they don't think there's pretty good odds of getting it. So I just wanted to bring y'all up to speed on that. So what they're asking from us is to commit the 1.2, which would be refunded back as a sales tax credit for all materials used in the construction of the building. And then the $4,198,848, you know, they're hoping to get from the new market tax credit. And then we would never actually, assuming they get that, never have to actually give any money over to them for that. So hope that brings you up to speed. And also, what was the original deficit, Phil?
The original
Yes.
deficit was over 13 million.
Yes.
That's original.
I met with Phil and reviewed the plans and suggested some ideas that save some money. They've gone back and looked at other things to save money. So they have worked very hard to get this down to a more manageable number. And as we discussed earlier with the audit, we've got a fund balance of almost $23 million unencumbered fund balance. So the money is there without raising any taxes.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we still are planning to try to make another cut when we work on the new budget, on the rate. I know some people have expressed concern to me that back in 2016, the county voted not to spend money on this school. That's a little bit misleading. They voted not to pass a bond referendum that was going to raise your taxes 9.95 cents per 100 to spend it on the school. And at the time, we already had a 90-cent rate. So people voted against that. I voted against that, to be honest, under those circumstances. Another factor at that time, the school was still at East. It was not as centrally located as Jackson, but it was more centrally located than it is in Gaston. So that's some things, just to put that out to everyone's information. Does anyone have any questions for them?
I'd like to know that figure that you all, the school system has gotten on your own. Is it $62 million? You all have gotten money without our assistant, any of assistance. How much money have you gotten on your own without our help?
$61,948,156. Just a few dollars short of 62 million.
And as you shared with me, Mr. Matthews, it has been since 1964 that the county has helped with the building of a school
With tax dollars.
with tax dollars.
And we did assist, we had to approve all of that before they did that.
They submitted the grant.
Yes.
So when, excuse me, when is the deadline that you have to have our answer
The
to?
bids close February 9th.
February 9th?
The
Yes.
bids that we have for this construction project start closing February 9th.
The time is getting short. It really should be voted on tonight, one way or the other. There is still a meeting, although that is normally the one we don't take actions on. We can always amend that as needed, but that's the situation we've got. Their bids will be null and void after that date, and I know how construction is. It ain't gonna go down. Yeah, that's right. But
Since we were not there on January 6th, it's hard for me to vote to spend that kind of money when our tax rates are 83 cents. We're going to add a fire tax to me at 7 cents, so I'm already at 90 cents. So if we don't get the money, then my tax rate's really going to go.
it actually won't affect, this will not affect your tax rate. It would
It
come
would
out of
if you
the
didn't
fund.
get the money.
No.
If they don't get the money.
No, it would come out of the
$4
fund balance. We've got an above-average fund balance, as he reported earlier, that we could take it out of if need be and not affect our taxes. Because I pledge I would not support it if it caused a tax increase myself.
But see, that's why we didn't get to hear all this, you know, at the,
Mr. Ellis, I will say that at the meeting where we had some presentations on the tax credit, we presented that earlier also. And I think it was during one of the joint meetings that we had that you were present at that meeting.
Just want to say thank you, Chair Martin, for the information. It was helpful. And thank you, Dr. Axe and Mr. Matthews, for the information.
Any other questions for the school system?
So tonight, we need to, they're looking for their money.
Yes.
That, you know,
Gotta vote
they
one way or the
looking
other.
for their money. So what we gonna do? That's what I want to know. What we gonna do? Are they gonna get the money or they not gonna get the
Find out
money?
here shortly.
Okay, okay, I'm
But
with you, Chair.
I will say this, like I said earlier, no money would actually change hands until after July 1st of 2026, if they don't get the money. They will find out in October or November if they're going to get that money.
The commitment, right, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, it's just a commitment.
You know, I look at
In
this.
case they don't.
Right. We've experienced, 19 million for a courthouse, 5 million for an annex, 3 million for housing, and 61 million for a school, which is a long time coming. Centrally located building in Northampton County with a county that's over 70 miles. CTE, transportation will be cut in half, because CTE, vocational education, is important. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve.
I second the motion.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I, Broadnax Taylor.
No.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you.
Okay. Severn Volunteer Fire Department.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I've talked with County Manager Phillips, and we've discussed some situations, some different scenarios to be able to help offset the loss of the tax revenue that we would have had for the tax district that was voted down in the previous meeting. And we had requested from the fire department a $20,000 non-repayable grant to offset the money. And then secondly, a $40,000 interest-free loan, if to be used only if approved by the Department of Insurance, Office of State Fire Marshal for needed equipment. This will only be awarded if we actually get the approval, which we will not know until after May 15th. But we have to apply for it way before then. And we don't have the funding available to be able to match, to apply for that grant. They will reimburse us 100% of the grant, which we will return to the county. And that's usually done before the end of the year. So you wouldn't have to expend on the 40,000 anything until after we're notified for sure after May 15.
Okay.
So we just need a commitment so we'd be able to say we had that funding available to use, because we can't spend that money out of general treasury.
Right. Where do you stand on your new application for your fire district?
Right now, we've talked with Mr. Johnny, and we've talked in depth by phone. We won't have another meeting together in person to discuss the issues that came up at the last meeting in the Margarettsville area.
Right.
And hope to have that resolved. That's why we weren't able to bring it up at the same time Conway had theirs.
Right. Because I think
Because then we
that
gotta
was
go through the
the
whole process.
key concern that anyone had about your fire district was, it seemed like some of that area would be better served by Seaboard, but at the time they got theirs, they weren't allowed to go that far. But I think if y'all can work that out, that should go smoothly. Anyone have any questions? Do you have anything you would like to add about this, County Manager?
I don't have any issues with what's being requested. It's, as long as that would be repaid,
Right.
so
Okay.
I don't have any problems.
Okay. Anyone on the board have any further questions? We have a motion to allow this to go forward?
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hi, Barnex Taylor.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to have the various departments give a little short overview so that the new commissioners can kind of be introduced to them. Tax, I guess, is up first.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I bring you greetings from the Northampton County Tax Department, and I'm honored to serve as the tax administrator here in Northampton County. The mission statement of the Northampton County Tax Department is to effectively and efficiently serve the citizens of Northampton County while providing superior customer service. The responsibilities of the tax department are to list, assess, discover, and collect taxes for Northampton County. In our land records and GIS area, we perform technical work, coordination of the county's GIS system. The staff in the Northampton County Tax Department consists of a tax administrator, an assistant tax administrator, an appraiser, a collections and listing supervisor, a GIS coordinator, a GIS technician, a senior tax assistant, and 2 tax assistants. One of which holds a master's degree, 5 of which holds bachelor's degree, 2 of which holds associate's degrees, a host of certificates and credentials. Our staff in the tax department is cross-trained. Each function has a standard operating procedure on file, and each staff member is in compliance with their 30 hours of continuing education. In our most recent collection period, which was from September 24th to January 25, we processed 10,507 payments. And we collected $18,861,062.41. In our land records department or area, in 2024, we processed 704 deeds, 70 plaques, and 75 wills. Our appraiser reports that we have 656 new constructions, improvements, and revisits. We are currently in our listing period where we're assessing property. Quickly, little known facts about the tax department. Since 2020, the Northampton County Tax Department has collected $2.9 million in delinquent taxes that had never been collected before. Our tax rate is currently 0.83, which is 5 cents down from last year. We do have tax relief programs, exemption and exclusions, including elderly, disabled, and disabled veterans, religious, nonprofit, and educational. We also have present use value deferments for agriculture, horticulture, and forestry. We also offer payment plans. If you are delinquent, you can apply for a payment plan to help you pay your taxes, and we accept prepayments before the actual collection process in September. We do go over and beyond for our taxpayers in the tax department, even if that means going to a home to someone who can't come to us. The Northampton County Tax Department strives to serve our taxpayers, our colleagues, and our community partners with dignity, with integrity, and with excellence. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Agent?
So good afternoon. I'm
Good
Rose
afternoon.
Lewis. I'm the interim agent, senior director. So what you have before you is a little quick PowerPoint there, slides about Northampton County Office on Aging. We're the lead agency for home and community care block grant funding. The providers, 3 providers are Helpful Hands and Hearts, Northampton County DSS. Beside that, you will see kind of the services that are provided. J.W. Faison Senior Center for home delivered meals. just the services that are provided there at the senior center, just to kind of give you overview of that. Activities, we're striving for activities, recruiting seniors. We have congregate meals, 60 years of older, Northampton County, come eat a meal with us. The seniors eat at 11:30, start about 11:30, do activities before, a little bit after. If we have a collaboration with CPTA, so if the seniors need transportation, give us a call, we'll get you there. They do crafts. Access East is our SHIP coordinator for Northampton County. They provide senior health insurance information program, Medicare assistance, help with annual enrollment, prescription drugs. I'm also a volunteer coordinator as well, so we assist seniors with that. Access to grocery shopping trips, that's contingent on funding, and that's through a collaboration with CPTA. Information and assistance and referrals, we get a lot of calls. Ms. Joyce is our part-time agent program coordinator. Get a lot of calls that she will kind of send to me on seniors that need help. So we provide that as well. Our 2025 through 2026 goals is priority ranking scale, and that came from the Home and Community Care Block Grant. And that's the kind of, with the Home and Community Block Grant Council that, kind of brought before you. They'll be trained and completing that priority ranking scale. So they can kind of be familiar with what kind of services the older adults need here in the county that's priority. That can change from county to county. Family caregiver support groups, that's some of our goals for 25, 26. And computer classes, some goals as well, through a collaboration with Upper Coastal. And then also, I just included there, taking a closer look at Senior Center. Right now, we have a part-time agent coordinator and 2 full-time agent program specialists, and myself, part-time interim agent director. So just a closer look into, the vision and the goals is to kind of look over our staffing needs there. I also included, for your information, the Home and Community Care Block Grant County budget instructions as well. And just a sample of what I mentioned about the priority ranking scale. This is something that I actually came up with that was based from the block grant. Block grant have it. And when that council is in place, this is what they will use to kind of rank priority. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. You want to get back?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Register of Deeds.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Honorable Chairman Martin, distinguished county commissioners, my fellow county citizens and attendees. Good evening again.
Evening.
My name is Robin Phillips.
Michelle Jordan, Teresa Kane.
And we are honored to serve you as the Register of Deeds staff. The Register of Deeds house and register the most important documents of your life, from the very beginning, birth certificates, to the very end, death certificates. Before you, you have a brochure of some of the services that we offer. I won't bore you by reading that. But we do go by the general statutes. We do not practice law. We do have a lot of legal questions that's posed to us, but we have to stay within the general statutes when we are answering our citizens' questions. Deeds of trust, deeds of trust, birth certificates, death certificates, DD 214s, which is military discharge documents. We record plats. And an array of other things that's on your brochure. Now, I feel like my little 2 minutes, I didn't do probably 1.5, if that. But register deeds office is self-explanatory. This is what we do.
Thank you for
Any questions?
your work.
Thank you for all you do.
Any questions?
No question.
And we do understand our assignment. We do realize that if it was not for the fine citizens of Northampton County, there would not be a need for us.
Excellent.
What sheet is next? Okay, there it is. Recreation.
Good evening. I narrowed mine down to 2 minutes and 6 seconds.
All right.
Might be a little quicker when I get to talking.
Hey, Jane. Thank you.
Go on, I can.
Good evening, Chairman Martin, Vice Chair Edwards, fellow commissioners, Mr. County Manager, Mr. Phillips. The Northampton County Recreation Department and Cultural Wellness Center, my name is James Roberts. I'm the Recreation Director and for Northampton County. The Northampton County Recreation Department and Cultural Wellness Center is dedicated to promoting and encouraging diverse leisure, recreation, wellness, cultural opportunities, and to enrich the quality of life for the citizens and non-citizens. Our children are our future, and we will strive to reach this at-risk group through recreation programs. As the department continues to grow, we will expand more recreation programs for all ages. We have 2 facilities we maintain: the Cultural Wellness Center, which is also including the recreational complex, and Rich Square Creasy Gym. Services we offer now is the youth basketball, t-ball coach pitch. This year we're going to offer summer baseball and fast pitch softball. We offer a fall youth tackle football, a summer football camp, and adult softball league. We'll be hosting some youth fast pitch softball tournaments this year. We offer open gym at Rich Square Creasy, and we just started open gym on the west end in Gaston at Northampton County Gym, which runs for 10 weeks Saturdays. And so far, we've done it the second time, and so far, we had about 50 people there last week. I mean, we don't really have any facilities or anything on the west end, so, we got to use the schools. At the Cultural and Wellness Center, we offer rental opportunities from birthday parties, family reunions, and weddings for our citizens and non-citizens. A full functional fitness room, morning and evening exercise classes for members, and we host a boating safety and hunter safety courses that is taught through our local game warden. We cut and maintain 5 ball fields, 1 football field, 2 playgrounds, 2 walking tracks, basketball court, and tennis courts. I would like to thank you for your continued support and look forward to a great year this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have taken advantage of that department until I turned 57, playing in the softball league myself.
Yeah, my knees are shot too. I can't
Finally
even play
decided
anymore.
I had to retire.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Health Department.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Megan Vick. I am the Health Director with the Northampton County Health Department. And our mission statement is to promote, provide, and protect the health and safety of the citizens in Northampton County. Our vision is a culturally sensitive health organization providing quality services, yielding improved health outcomes. Some of our services that we offer are primary care, family planning, lab services, child health, WIC, general clinic, case management programs for at-risk children and for high-risk pregnancy, communicable disease, environmental health, rabies control, home health, health education, emergency preparedness, and vital records. You will see in front of you, I believe that I have passed out a brochure as well as our 2024 Annual Statistical Public Health Report. This is a document that we have to do every year. I'm not going to read all through it, but you can see some of our successes in the past year. It's always done a year behind so that we can gather all of our data that we have done. But in here, it talks about our governing board. We are governed by a Board of Health. All of our governing members are listed. Commissioner Bonnex Taylor is our commissioner representative that sits on our Board of Health. You can see here too that we have a management team. Every year, we also do a strategic plan where it talks about our strategic goals for the year, and we always go through that and give updates on our yearly plan. You can go through and see, and anybody who wants to see this, you can look on our website under our resource tab, then you can look at all this. So that is listed for everybody if anybody wants to see this. It does talk about some of our department accomplishments for fiscal year 23-24. It also talks about our budget and how we, our revenue collected and how that is, we get some of ours from fees for service as well as state, federal, and grants, because we also do receive Medicaid dollars from the state. And then it does talk about our revenue sources, where it talks about grants, Medicare, county funds, state funds, Medicaid, our program fees, and insurance. So that includes some private insurance and Medicaid as well. But then you can also go and see the different categories, you know, the amount of patients that we've seen in each program. And as far as like communicable disease, you can go through and see like which ones that we've had as far as treated or screened for any kind of sexually transmitted diseases. Our environmental health services, we have broken down for food and lodging how many inspections that we have done for that, as well as our on-site program, and our total visits and inspections and permits for the year, fiscal year 23-24 was 1,640. It also talks about our numbers for all of our clinical programs. If you all remember that we just started last year providing primary care, so you will see some of those, like our DOT physical, some of those numbers are really, they're not low, but they are lower than what you would think, but we just started that, and we have already seen an increase in the first 6 months from this fiscal year, so that we are hopeful that we are going to be seeing a big increase from that. We work very closely with a lot of the other departments. We work closely, especially with the Register of Deeds for vital statistics, the tax department for our on-site. They are continuously looking up tax records. And so that is just a Snapchat of what we do. And you'll just see some of those listed in this book. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation, and I apologize to all of y'all how long it's taken tonight, the fire alarms. We had a lot of business, but thank you for being patient. Okay. All right. Do we have any financial?
We don't have any financial information to present tonight, so I'll just combine the financial and county managers' comments.
All right.
I just wanted to first thank Alan's group, the auditors, for the work that they did with the county to get the audits done on time. I believe we got it done by December 31st. I want to just bring to your remembrance that it wasn't 1 year's audit that was done in this fiscal year, it was three years. The audits were behind. When I started working for this county, they were 3 years behind. We got them caught up. There were thousands of transactions not recorded. I can give you a laundry list of things that was not done, but that's not the type of person I am. I'm a go-getter and I get things done. So we've been working on getting things done, getting them straight, getting them right. I'm a man of standards. I believe in doing things right and by the books. And all I can tell you is that, am I pleased with the findings? No. Was I expecting findings? Yes. You don't know what you're working with until the audit is done. So that's why I appreciate what the auditors did. Now that we were able to see them, they reported on this on the last audit, and Alan himself was present. He couldn't be here tonight. He would have been here last week if we didn't have the storm. But he mentioned on the last presentation that the fact that we were catching up on previous year's audit, it's almost impossible to correct the errors of the past. So that's why I was so pleased when we got done through December, and I said to my staff, now we have 6 months to work on corrective actions. We've already communicated to the LGC and the auditors, responded to these findings. We have corrective actions that have been identified that needs to be implemented. I plan on reporting back to you all in several months as far as how things have turned out after we have implemented those changes. So I don't want anyone to think because I sit down here and I'm kind of, they always say he's calm, cool, and collected. And that's because I just want to handle my business. I'm going to take care of business, get it done, get it right, so that we're not looking at this time next year. You're not going to see these type of findings. It's unacceptable. But like I said, I knew they were coming, and we needed to get it done, get the audits done so that we can move forward. So that being said, I'm glad that we're in this position that we can move forward. I'm always thankful for the audience that comes out every night to voice their concerns. And I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you, y'all be safe.
Okay. All right, now we'll start on my right and move this way with any comments from any board members.
Not going to be long. I just want to thank the citizens for coming out and bearing with us on tonight. I also want to thank the staff for you all sharing information. I know Chair Martin said so to get the new commissioners up to speed. Some of your departments I've had an opportunity to come to and participate in, and so I just say continue to do the work that you all do. Every time that I've come in, it's been very welcoming, and so I appreciate the work that you do because it takes long hours, it takes, being consistent, and it takes having that customer service friendly environment. As Dr. Phillips was just sharing a few moments ago, we don't expect perfection when we get audits or whatever the case is. As long as we use those moments to learn and to grow and continue to get better, that's what we're looking to do. So I appreciate you sharing that, you'll come back in a few months and be able to share some of the things that are working well. But I'm not going to hold up the time again. Citizens, we appreciate you coming out. Staff, we appreciate the time and the hours that you put in. So thank you so much.
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Really is good to see a big crowd. I think if we all can come together, we'll make this county a really good county. Thank you, Julian, County Manager. You've given me a lot of information that, I'm new, but thank you for what you do. You've been able to help me through some things, so appreciate it a whole lot. Thank you. Y'all be safe going home.
Ms. Broadnax Taylor.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I feel like I've talked so much. I guess I don't know what to say, but to thank you for hanging and rolling in there with us tonight, because this has been a night. That second time when the fire alarm went out, if I'd had my key, I'd left this meeting. But I knew we had work to do. But I'd like to thank you all for making our county a better place to live and thrive. Because we know things just don't happen. We got to make them happen. So again, thank y'all for riding with us tonight.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. And then on a note, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the acknowledgement in the moment of silence for the loss of a DSS Northampton County citizen employee while performing their duties. What an unwavering commitment. And we express our deepest sympathy and condolences to their family. Long evening tonight, but a very great evening for Northampton County. Looking forward to the building in Seaboard, things that are going to be done on the horizon. Looking forward to a new school in Northampton County. Looking forward to continued partnerships. Looking forward to Severn Fire Department and all the fire departments in Northampton County. What you do is unmeasurable. and we appreciate everything you do. I want to say special shout out also to the Seaboard Town Commissioners for being here this evening. What a commitment that you have. And again, looking forward to the great things that have happened in the town I grew up in, Jackson and Seaboard.
Thank you again, and like I said, I apologize for how long it went. As soon as that alarm went off the second time, I'm friends with the fire chief. I texted him immediately and said, it's going off again. So they responded pretty quickly and got us back going. But appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and look forward to working with you continuously for the rest of the year. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A, 3, attorney-client privilege, and also General Statute 143-318.11A, 4, EDC report.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Barnett Taylor.
Aye. Thank y'all. We're going to closed session. You're welcome. Told y'all what to do. Work with you.